I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 135. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode where I had the pleasure of having a conversation with Molly Sonstang. Molly is a co-founder of a company called Cave Day that is focused on facilitating deep work for professionals. And you will hear more about that as we go along. But it is an exciting conversation and an exciting company because of what they bring, the value that they bring to the work we all know we should be doing. And we all understand that we should be sinking into work and carving out the time. But do we do it? Even those of my members and clients that practice Monday Map and do well, I think even they would probably appreciate what Cave Day offers, let alone someone who's just trying to start to take control over their time and really move the needle with how they spend their time. This conversation is perfect for listeners of this podcast. So much so that not only am I going to be a member of Cave Day and joining and showing up to caves to do the work. You'll hear more about how they set that up for members in just a moment. But we've also worked out a really cool deal for Velocity Work members and clients to be able to take part in caves at a heavily reduced rate. And this is so exciting. I mean, I really worked with them on this and pushed for this because I wanted this to be a value add for members and clients. This is right up the alley of all the things we talk about and doing meaningful work and planning well and being able to honor the plan. This will be a tool that is available now to mastery group members that in a way that the public does not have access to this. So excited for this. If you'd like to be involved in the most useful coaching program for law firm owners, I say that with conviction because that is literally what I work towards every single day is useful. That's the word that guides me with how to think about what I provide to master group members. It's how do we be as useful as possible to you all with making headway towards where you really want to go. And man, how we've evolved using that word as a guiding principle and how we are evolving and how we will evolve. It's wild. It's so awesome. And now this is an additional perk. You can head on over to velocitywork.com/join to get involved. Enjoy this episode where we talk about some of the fundamentals of what it takes. And even though it sounds so simple, it's just not things that we actually do in our lives. And so I'm hoping that today can serve as a bit of a refresh for all of you listening to just step up your game a little bit in terms of taking control where you have control, making some calls for yourself that are great for the long game. I hope you really enjoy this conversation with Molly Sonstang. All right. Well, welcome everyone to this episode of the Velocity Work Podcast. I'm very excited for today's conversation because we have Molly Sonstang here, who is from Cave Day, which is caveday.org. And if you don't know about them, you're going to know about them. You're going to like learning about what they're all about, how they got started, and the kind of value that they provide professionals. Yeah. Welcome, Molly.
Thanks so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah. You're like the perfect guest, I think, for us because of the kind of work we do inside of Velocity Work to make a really solid plan and then honor your plan. And in order to honor your plan, no matter how big or small we're talking, you have to be able to focus. And that's what Cave Day is really all about. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about Cave Day and how it got started?
Absolutely. Our mission at Cave Day is essentially to improve people's relationship to work. And I don't think we often think about our relationship to work. We have, relationship to other people, to our colleagues, to our family, to our friends. We have a relationship to self. But then there's this other thing that we spend a lot of our waking hours on, which is our work. And if we don't have a healthy relationship to our work, it's going to, it will obviously have an impact in the rest of our lives. So we strive to improve the quality of your life by improving the quality of your work. Mm-hmm. So what does that actually look like? At Cave Day, we, in short, lead deep focused work sessions for a global community. Imagine it's almost like a group fitness class, but for your work. Mm-hmm. So you are showing up to do your own individual work surrounded by 100 people, all virtually. There's a cave guide, a facilitator who's helping keep you on track for your important work. We remove distractions. We sprint for around 50 minutes at a time, and we work on the work that requires focus and putting the blinders on and going into this figurative cave where we can't be interrupted. That's the very quick and dirty on what Cave Day is. We started as an in-person experience about 5 years ago in New York City, and we're just coming up on our anniversary in January, which is so exciting. Before the pandemic, we had actually already started a virtual component. So we were, doing both in person and virtual. So we were in good shape to pivot to fully virtual and really reach a broader audience when the pandemic hit. And we've seen incredible growth. And, once people were working from home, before the pandemic, we had different kinds of distractions. There were lots of notifications and meetings we didn't need to be in and colleagues needing us immediately. We still have all those distractions. But now we have things that we didn't even know how to deal with when we first started working from home. Yeah. The refrigerator is right there. The couch is right there. It can take a quick Netflix break on your lunch. We had this service that people could use that would help keep them on track so they're not working all hours of the day. And that's the short of it.
Something you just said, they're not working all hours of the day. I feel like the work that I do with Velocity Work members and clients is so that they get time back. We have our own way of sort of facilitating that and doing that in terms of getting a really solid plan that can work. And then your job is to honor it. But I do think that what you're doing, the facilitation piece of honoring what it is that you said you were going to do, is so immensely powerful, because you can have the best plan in the world for how you're going to spend your day or what you're going to get done that day. But I think accountability is great. And I think being led is great. It just kind of takes the cognitive load off of your brain in order to be able to show up and just sink into the work. Man, I really love this concept. I think it's so needed in the world. It's probably a bit of a reprieve for people to show up to a cave. And I think you have 1 hour caves and 3 hour caves. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I haven't tried it yet. I'm going to try it, but more on that in just a moment. And I'm going to have you back on after I really sink into it, because I think there'll be more to talk about and share. One thing I mentioned briefly right before we started is that everybody in my sphere is expected to practice something called Monday Map, Friday Wrap, which is just a way to make sure that you're very intentional with your time and how you're spending your time every week. And they do take in the full account, so their lives plus their work. But the work is what they struggle with the most, clearly, because there's just so much to fit in. And it's an intentional practice of sitting down and brain dumping all of the things that need to be done and then scheduling time for those things. And what always happens at first is that they start scheduling time for those things and they realize it doesn't all fit. And there's a freak out mode because it doesn't all fit. And typically they'll just double book themselves or create an unrealistic schedule that they can't follow. And so they're setting themselves up for failure. And so part of that learning curve is that, okay, you're freaking out right now because it doesn't all fit, but it wasn't going to fit anyway. Wouldn't you like to know that up front and make some decisions ahead of time, reset expectations, then get to Friday and feel defeated? The plan in and of itself, I think is hard. But then when it comes time to just stay the course of what you said you were going to do, that's pretty intense as well. And then I guess the reason I'm sharing all this is because on top of that, the people that I have the privilege of working with are owners of their own firms, their law firms. They have this balance of being a lawyer and being a business owner that they have to juggle. And this deep, this on the business focus work that isn't just lawyering, is so important and usually gets kicked to the curb because lawyering will fill the space. And they want to spend more time on the business. And sometimes they schedule time for that, but it usually, like, there's often times where they just kind of blow through it with other things. So I imagine that if our listeners were to use Cave Day, that's what they would try to make headway on, unless they had a really big case or that they were working, or matter that they were working on and need to sink into. There's a few things that you guys have really found that are important that you've been able to distill down and talk about in a really clear way on what is important when you are thinking about the big work, the deep work. Like one of them that we were just briefly mentioning, but I wanted to go into on the podcast, was important versus urgent and how people think about that. Will you say more about, like, I'm just thinking of these people who are listening have a lot to juggle. Not that most professionals don't, but it's unique to them. I wanted to be able to provide, and through this conversation today with you, provide a way for them to start to shift how they think about what they're going to need and how they're going to need to think differently in order to show up fully for these things. Impart your wisdom, Molly Sonsing.
I love this. Yeah, I really understand. I come from a family of attorneys, and my father transitioned into teaching law. So this is something that we talk a lot about when you're running your business, but you also have to lawyer. I really understand. And we mentioned this concept of important versus urgent work. How we think about this, at least at Cave Day, important work is the work that really does require it. And not to say that, let me say that urgent work, not to say that urgent work isn't also important, but we're going to separate them for just a moment. Important work tends to be this work that requires you can't be interrupted. It's the hard work. It's the work that you tend to put off, right? It's like, oh, this feels physically hard, or I have a physical feeling that I'm going to put this off. And that's kind of where procrastination comes in. Like, procrastination isn't a time management problem. It's really an emotional response issue. Yes. So we procrastinate because we're having a physical or emotional feeling about something, and our response is to put it aside. When we procrastinate, we're responding to safety. We're wanting to feel safe. So we put something aside rather than digging into it more deeply. And what we were trying to encourage is that when you do your important work in the space of other people, it feels less challenging. It feels like, I know there's other people here in this space working on their own important work. Mm-hmm. And how we define urgent work is the stuff that's always coming at you, right? I almost think about it as that scene in one of the Indiana Jones movies where he's running from the boulder, chasing after him, or like the snowball. It's like just keeps getting bigger and bigger, or the laundry list, whatever you want to call it. That's just, it keeps growing, and it's always going to grow, right?
Yeah.
And you could just stay working on that urgent work and feel really, and like you're busy, you're doing work. You're doing busy work. But what would it feel like to really put that aside for a period of time? I'm not talking about all day, but for a period of time, maybe one day a week, where you can really dig in to that work that requires this kind of focus and attention. Mm-hmm. And I have another add to that, but I wanted to know if that makes sense, if that answers your question.
Oh, it totally makes sense. You are speaking my language. The emotional response that people run from. That is my whole thing. I think that's really the crux of my coaching. Like, so make a plan, honor your plan, but then we have coaching calls, and I don't come at it that way until it's presented. And we talk about, like, why is it so uncomfortable to sit and just do the thing, or to move through your plan, even if it's not deep work, right? Just like do what you said you were going to do. The discomfort that comes along with that can be really intense. So I really understand what you're saying. And I appreciate that that's a part of the conversation that you guys have, because that's the truth. I think people tend to think of productivity and procrastination, or productivity or a lack of productivity. They tend to think of it from such a superficial point of view that you'll never win at the game from that perspective. You really do have to understand yourself and what is happening in your brain and what can support a different way, which community, to your point, like showing up with other people who are doing the same thing. I think that's powerful. I love what you're saying.
One
And
other thing that go
can I ask
ahead.
one more question? Do
Yes.
you know of the author Nir Eyal? He wrote a book
Mm.
called Indistractable. That guy, I think, is my brother from another mother. He doesn't know that yet, but someday he will. And that whole book, I was just like out loud saying, yep, 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 yep. Like he did a very good job of explaining what is happening inside of you.
Yeah, I really appreciate his work, and we follow him certainly.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Sorry, I
one thing
cut
I
you
was
off.
thinking of in the Monday Map, Friday Wrap,
Mhm.
and before in an early conversation we had, you had mentioned that it can take almost like 4 to 9 months for folks to really understand how to use this method.
Like feel and
And
flow with it. Yeah.
yeah. And so it got me thinking about scoping your work. And when you're learning to work in this way, either with the Monday Map, Friday Wrap, or learning how to really do deep work properly, we find that people will often have trouble with either under or over scoping at the beginning of this kind of learning this new practice. And that's really common. A Monday Map, you're feeling, I don't know, this happens on Monday? Or does it happen on Sunday?
It's supposed to happen before they start work on Monday. And so many of them that have been doing it for a while, they back it up now and they do it like the Thursday or Friday prior to the next week. But there's still quite a few people that do it on Saturday or Sunday.
Right.
Yeah.
I can imagine that when it's created, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of someone who's doing this, and I would have energy around it. I'm feeling ambitious. Like, yes, I'm going to tackle next week. I'm going to do all these things. I don't know exactly how it's formatted. So this is just
but you're right.
From my unknowing perspective. And then when they sit down to do it, it's like, oh, I can't do this. I've got a lawyer. I've got to do my practice. When am I supposed to do all of these things? It sounds to me like there is overscoping going on.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, if you start small, you underscope, then you realize, oh, it actually doesn't take me that long to do this one task. And it's just interesting to really get to learn, how long does it take me to do all these tasks? When we're distracted all the time, when we're interrupted, we don't really know how long it takes to do anything.
Right.
So what would it feel like if you turned distractions off, turned notifications off, really dove in? It might only take you 30 minutes to do this taxing task.
Yes. Yeah. Overscoping. I think generally what happens is they put too much on their calendar, but there's times where when you say underscoping, I'm thinking of the micro, like they are not giving themselves the amount of time that they think they don't know how long it takes. Like, just like you said, they've never done something from start to finish without being interrupted or distracted. And one of the parts of them, they have to sort of get everything out of their head and onto paper or in a document or whatever that they need to get done. And one of the things that they have to do is make sure that they break down the things small enough so that they can, to the best of their ability, put how long each thing is going to take. And then they know what to batch together. They know how long, but they're usually wrong. And that's one of the barriers for them when they're starting to try to figure this out is, I don't know how long it's going to take me. So they feel stuck that they have to put this huge block of time on the calendar and they really don't know how long it's going to take. And so anyway, I think that's part of them getting to understand themselves along the journey, is that when they start being less distracted, they really learn how long something takes for real. And there's so many times they overestimate or underestimate, and you don't really know which way it's going to go until you actually try it undistracted. And then you can. So anyway, I love the word under and over scoping. I've never used that word in talking about this, but I think that's really great. Yeah.
I think it helps frame this exact issue.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So important versus urgent. Anything else you want to say there before I ask?
And there was one thing that came up. You mentioned blocking time or putting time on the calendar, like this big period of time, then gets pushed aside. How I like to think about, if you really can block time, if you can block an hour on your calendar once a week, even starting with that, rather than thinking about it as like, oh, I don't have that hour to meet with this person, I don't have that hour to lawyer, whatever it may be. I think it's a shift and thinking of that as a gift. That is that block of time
Mm-hmm.
That block of time is a gift to you. Like, oh, I don't have, no one's going to get me. No one has access to me. I get to, it's protected. It's for me only. It really is just a shift in thinking about it. Oftentimes people will say, oh, I really want to come to a cave, but I don't have time. Like, well, that's not the way to think of it. This really is, you do have the time. This is for you. It's it's not for me. It's not for anyone else. This is for you.
Right.
To say no to everything else.
Yeah.
For a relatively short period of time. 3 hours can feel long, but imagine 3 hours.
Right.
It's protected.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
and facilitated. That's what I
right.
think. I think that's probably one of your, a good friend of mine interviewed one of your co-founders, Jenny Blake, and she interviewed Jake, your co-founder. And he said something about, or no, she said, I think that's your secret sauce. That's what she said. And I was like, that's true. That has to be true. I understand the power of facilitation because I facilitate strategic planning meetings. If I was not in that room, it wouldn't go as well. And it's not because I'm special. It's because I know how to facilitate. Facilitation is an extremely powerful tool that you can use. And so using it in the ways that you're talking about with deep focus work is brilliant because, again, going back to this idea that you're guided and led through a framework, like you're not telling them what to do. I think that's the power of facilitation. Anything that's being facilitated is the job is to help pull the best out of that person in the moment and whatever it is the focus is. And there's a framework that you guys use inside of the sessions that you lead people through. And I think there's such power in that because it's what you do. It's a bit of a process or a system for the session, and they don't have to worry about any of it. They just need to show up. Yeah. Yeah.
What our format is, it's very simple. It's not at all rocket science, which I think is part of why it works, is that it is very simple. And I do want to talk about what the format is in just a second, but I wanted to make a comment on facilitation. It's, again, I want to bring back this idea of a group fitness class, of a gym class. I'm one of those people that I don't really exercise unless I pay someone who's going to lead me in some sort of group class. I need to be facilitated. I need the group. I'm not going to do it. And the same with my work. I'm often a ping pong ball in my work. I'm even though this is a concept that I live and breathe, when I'm not in a cave, I am switching between tabs. I'm in my email. I'm in this. I'm, looking at my phone. I need this service too. And so this actually ties nicely into one of the topics we wanted to discuss, which is the 3 conditions.
Yes.
And
I really,
I
feel like people will love it.
Yeah. It kind of helps set up what the formula, what the format for Cave Day is. We've talked a lot about facilitation and deep work, but like, what is the cave actually? What does it look like? And we talk about how getting into the flow, getting into like actually practice deep work, it's challenging. You can't just like snap your fingers and get into flow. But there are 3 conditions that we talk about as ways in which you can trick your brain or get yourself prepared for where deep work is possible. And I do want to also mention that we get a lot of our tenants from Cal Newport. Have you read his book, Deep Work?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. And there's so many people in my crew that love Cal Newport. They love his latest book, A World Without Email.
Okay,
definitely.
Yeah. Just want to mention, we get a lot of our framework from people who are known and respected in this field. So 3 conditions. The first is defining your work. So it's something like this Monday map. So rather than sitting down on Monday morning or, whenever you're starting your day, rather than just firing up your machine, jumping into email, I think what so many of us do. And then we get sucked into email and the busy work, right? But rather than starting there, what if you defined what you were actually working on in this period of time? All right. Like, let's say it's a writing project. Are you in the research phase, the outlining phase, or the actual writing phase? If you're in the writing phase, how many words are you trying to get to in this period of time? I'm not talking about defining your work by writing a whole paper on it. It's just a little blurb or even a sentence or a word. What are you working on? That's going to help you stay accountable to that project.
Mm-hmm.
The second is time. So blocking out this time and doing that in advance. Like, oh, I see on my calendar, I've got an hour on Wednesday morning. Oh, great. I don't have to think about this work right now. I can do it at that period of time. And we also suggest when you are blocking your time that you mentioned batching. Mm-hmm. So rather than having your email open all day, every day, which many of us do, I do most of the time, mm-hmm. but checking your email in the morning and in the afternoon and maybe once before the end of the day. This isn't possible for every kind of worker every day. Mm-hmm. But there are times when you can block your time and check your email only at a certain times during the day. Chances are that work that feels really urgent and you've got a client that really needs something, we live in this culture where we need immediate response. Yes. And we are very reactive to our email. Mm-hmm. But chances are that urgent, I'm using air quotes, mm-hmm. that mm-hmm. urgent email can wait an hour or maybe two.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it's mind-blowing, but it probably is true. There are urgent things that come up, like real urgent things. Mm-hmm. But an hour or 2 hours is something that we should be able to get back in our lives. So, all right, so we've got definition, we've got time, blocking that time. And lastly, the big one is monotasking, which is a word your listeners may or may not be familiar with, but it's a pretty obvious one, right? Monotasking versus multitasking. And another topic that we thought we'd talk about, which is how multitasking is really a myth. Multitasking when it comes to your work isn't really true. You can multitask if you are, watching a show and doing the dishes. Great. Mm-hmm. You're monotasking or you're multitasking. Congratulations. But
the thing about that is that's like a behavior that, gosh, maybe it was Jake on that interview with Jenny Blake. It may have been something different I was just listening to, but they were talking about, it was something with Nir, something he was doing. They were talking about habits. Stop thinking in habits because it actually isn't helpful to do what you want to do, which is build a habit. And he defined a habit as it's an automatic impulse to do something, like an unconscious automatic impulse to do something.
Right.
And some habits, air quotes, that you want to form are never going to be that. You're never going to be an automatic, almost like unconscious impulse. Right. And so I loved listening to that because people get so caught up in I need to develop a habit. I need to develop habits to do X, Y, and Z. And sometimes it is the nature of it. It's going to be work for your brain to get over the hump, to just do the thing you need to do or you want to do. Right. And so doing the dishes and watching a show are very unconscious things that you can be doing. And so that feels like, okay, that's when multitasking can come in. Right. Maybe, I guess, right?
It's habitual. It's not really cognitive, right? Like,
yes,
you're receiving information. Yes.
Yes.
This is the way that you're doing the dishes is so rote and you don't have to, there's no thought given.
Right. Also, what I notice is, and it surprises me how many people say to me, I'm really good at multitasking. To me, that is the most insane sentence. It's the most unconscious, uninformed sentence you can say. And these are really intelligent people that say it. I'm like, what is the missing link here?
So what they think they're good at, if I can pick up, what they think they're good at is task switching. So they've got all these either literal or figurative tabs in their heads or on their machines, and they're switching from task to task before they're finished with anything. They're leaving attention from one task and bringing their attention into another. So it's called attention residue. So you're never 100%. If you think you're really good at multitasking or task switching, as we call it, you're never giving 100% of your attention on any one thing.
Yeah.
No wonder we're so fragmented. No wonder it takes us so long to get our work done. No wonder we're working 60, 70 hours a week, or we're working, we have to do our hard work at night because we think we're good at juggling.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. Yeah, we're really fragmented. And there's another thing that we refer to as continuous partial attention. You've got sort of partial attention going across the day. I kind of like to think about it as like all day from the minute we wake up until we go to bed, we're kind of 70% on, right? We're 70% focused on something, whatever it may be. So there's this 30% hanging out, waiting to pull
Mm-hmm.
your attention at any given time. And we've essentially given consent
Mm-hmm.
to be distracted, to be pulled out from whatever it is, whether it's notifications that we don't know when they're coming, but it's like a game. Like, when am I going to get it? I don't know. And what is it going to be? Is it going to be important, or is it going to be something from family? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I like this idea of, we've given consent to this 30% of pulling our attention at any time.
Yeah. We're giving permission to, I do think this was from Jake and Jenny's interview. He was talking about the fact that, I don't know where you can look this up. I haven't tried to look it up yet, but I was like, what? The sound on the phone, the notification on the phone is the same pitch as a baby crying.
That's
you
right.
are literally supposed to drop what you're doing to answer that notification based on the way we're wired.
And I was going to on that, the same with the color red.
Yes.
Color
and the red circle,
yes.
He said.
Yeah. The color red is, that is a alert color. These are designed to
interrupt, pull. Well, is it that it's designed to tap into your like autonomic nervous system?
That's right.
I think I always knew, and most people listening to this probably knew, that they are designed to pull your attention.
Right.
And to win, basically. But when he said that about the pitch of a baby crying, I was like, what on God's green earth is happening? This is so messed up.
Right.
So, you don't stand a chance. Literally, you don't stand a chance in keeping those on and staying focused. There's no freaking way, because of the thought and the research that's put into all of that behind the scenes. No way. You stand no chance. So that was fascinating to me.
So, that's why we pulling it back into these 3 conditions. Why? Okay, how can we combat this attention-seeking world that we live in? How can we combat that?
Yeah.
We can start with these 3 conditions. When we start our work, defining what it is we're working on, protect time for ourselves, and monotask the best we can. And what that looks like is, it's very simple. It's monotasking and focus is challenging. But it's possible. And it's removing distractions as much as you can, putting your phone in another room just for that period of time, turning notifications off, telling people around you, whether it's colleagues or people that you share space with, hey, for the next hour or 3, however long you have, I'm not available. If you truly need me, this is how you can access me. But for this short period of time, I'm not available. Yeah. And I think with that communication, it's really helpful. And then the last thing that we do, at Cave Day, we put all of these conditions in play with other people, with community. Even though it's virtual, just knowing there are people all around the world at the same time working on their challenging projects, there's energy in that.
Is it cameras on or cameras off in your case?
Cameras on. Everything is an invitation. So we do invite you to leave a camera on, whatever feels comfortable for participants. You're obviously going to be more accountable if you leave your camera on. You're less likely to go look at your phone in the living room or grab a snack or wherever you're working.
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh, this is so good. I was just thinking as you were talking, this really is about, and this is for everybody listening, and I would love to hear what you think about this, Molly, or add on. Productivity is about you taking control where you have control, and people just don't do it. Like when you said they give consent, that is exactly what's happening. They're giving permission to the world to invade their headway and giving them access to them very consistently. Most people listening to this, they don't set expectations well with those around them, usually because they're scared. Like, well, what if someone really needs me in that hour? Or like, they don't really think it through. It's just like, no, just in case, I'm not going to like shut out the world. But so for whatever reason, there's a fear of some sort why they don't set expectations appropriately with people around them. They also will drop things on a dime if a client emails and it's urgent to the client, but there's literally nothing that can be done in the moment by the attorney. And so it's like they give in though to those things and respond. So defining what an emergency truly is for the firm is important. They don't do that. They allow the world to pull at them in ways that they actually do have control over. And it's so easy to tell ourselves that we don't. No, you don't understand my situation. I'm this kind of a lawyer. No, you don't understand my situation. There's some big things going on. You don't understand my situation, my team, X, Y, and Z. Those are just justifications, even though it doesn't feel like that. And I know that. I know people they aren't trying to just justify how they work, but we're wired to do that. And people not taking control where they have control is the main problem with focus and with getting anywhere. You were just talking about if you sit down and you decide to like take that hour to make headway on something important, then not only does it feel so good when you're done with the hour or the 3 or whatever you got, but those are the people that make real headway. They really move the needle on their businesses instead of just spinning in busyness. And like you said, that's rewarding at times, the busyness, but there will be a day of reckoning where you wake up and realize that you actually don't have to show for the work what you feel like you should have to show for the work, meaning headway on your business or your firm. So it's so sad to see just the sabotage that's so natural for humans to participate in this day and age. So everything we're talking about, I genuinely feel like this is the most important conversation, one of the most important conversations you can have for, at least for my community. I guess I don't want to speak for everyone, because it doesn't matter what kind of plans you have. It doesn't matter what your goals are. None of that matters if you're not going to show up in a way that really supports moving the needle towards the things that you say you want. This kind of all starts and stops with this. It's fun to make plans, but it's fun to have dreams and goals, but this is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who's made real progress has had to learn how to work in this way. Look, any writer, any big thinker has had to learn how to work in a way that allows for real focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to comment that this is, like you said, it is very normal and it's okay to think, we all think that way.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's work is important and valid and necessary. And there's
totally
like, I don't want to ever say that your situation, one situation isn't more like critical. Like,
sure.
I get that. And I think what learning to work in this way does, it just supports you even more. If you can learn how to practice and find space where deep work is possible, it will only elevate your work and your career and your progress.
Yes. I mean, the way that you just said that, because some people do have different barriers that it's all subjective, but that many would gauge as tougher barriers than others. And I think about the attorneys I work with, those who are in court a lot versus those who are at their desk most of the time and they can get the work done from the office. Your time is not your own in the same way when you have to be in court a lot, but it doesn't do any good. And this is the conversations we usually have. It's like, okay, just get to facts and not feelings. Like on average, how many hours a week are you in court? All right. Off the top, that time is not your own. You don't get to make plans. You don't get to schedule things in that time. So like just off the top. And then there's what's left. You get to choose how you're going to spend that time. And it is different. And maybe to some, I could see where some are like, that's harder. I think at times I would tend to agree, but it doesn't help to even go there in the conversation. Like the barriers are your barriers. Figure out what the facts from the feelings are, and then just deal with it. Take control where you have control. And where there's areas you don't have control, stop fighting it. Just roll. But I think to your point, that's a really good point. I didn't mean to sound like nobody has real barriers. Just like suck it up.
It didn't come out like that.
Oh, well, I hope not. But I do think that there probably are situations where the situation is so different from attorney to attorney and from practice to practice and from team to team and from family to family. But it really doesn't matter. What are your barriers and where can you take control? And to your point, I would rather someone take a small amount of time once a week and honor it and do it and sink into the deep work there than every day say they're going to take a chunk of time. And it's not realistic for them. It's just overscoping, right? Is that, yeah. So it doesn't take a lot to actually move the needle. It doesn't take a lot. It's amazing what can happen when you really sink into deep work for a session. It's so meaningful to progress.
Yeah. I think it's important to state that this is when we're talking about, when you and I are talking about diving in, doing this deep work, blocking time, we're not suggesting this has to happen all day, every day. Like, I just want to hit that point again. There are so many different kinds of workers. And this, we talk a lot about the knowledge worker. So someone who's often sitting like this at a machine, at their laptop, or at a desk, and they're working 8-ish hours a day, and they maybe have more autonomy over their time. This kind of work isn't maybe applicable to those working in the medical field, especially, in hospitals, for example, or factory workers. It doesn't make sense for all kinds of work, or someone who needs to be on the phone all the time, or collaboration. But chances are, in most knowledge work and most of the work that we do, there is work that requires this real focus. And that's what we're talking about. Like, you have to be in court. Of course you have to be in court. No one's saying like that's not, yes, but there's maybe 1 hour a week where you get to have that protected gift. And that's really all we're talking about. It's not possible for us to work this way all the time. Of course not. We need to do administrative tasks. We need to be in meetings, but there is the high mental strain, individual work. That's what we're talking about here.
Oh, I like that. High mental strain, individual work. That is it.
We have sort of four quadrants that we talk about. There's the highly social, low mental strain. So that's like being in a staff meeting. You're in meetings, highly social, low mental strain. Then there's highly social, high mental strain, which is like facilitation. Like if you are facilitating, you're very social, but it takes a lot of strain. Then there's individual, low mental strain. And we tend to spend a lot of time in there. And maybe not your listeners, but that's like the administrative tasks, emails, the things
shallow
that we are
work.
really good at. Exactly, shallow work that we stay busy on. And then there's this other really important quadrant that we don't spend a lot of time, but that's the part that we push away, this individual high mental strain. And that is the writing, the brainstorming, the work that requires attention.
Oh, I love that.
And so all of these quadrants, you got to be in all of them, right? All of them are important, but it's really hard to do that individual high mental strain if you don't have support in place.
I love thinking of it like that because that's true. I think sometimes when I do my brain download for every week, like the things I need to get done and schedule or delegate or whatever, there was an idea given to me by a member that he started dropping his into buckets. And I think he has like 7 different buckets, things to delegate, shallow work, deep work, but I think he even had that separated out. So deep work is how I typically identify, like that's the bucket I would drop into certain things that are that individual high mental strain.
Yeah.
And I almost like individual high mental strain better because it is freaking hard. It sort of just calls it what it is. It is hard. You're going to need to block off time. It's not deep work almost sounds really nice, really flowy. And it doesn't feel flowy, at least to drop into it initially. Like you were saying, you can't just snap your fingers and be in flow with it. So there is this transition that for me, that's the high mental strain, is the transition into the project or into the thinking. So I really like that because it feels very accurate.
Very descriptive.
Yes. High mental strain. I'm writing that down. That's definitely going to go on my Monday Map Brain Download bucket now. That's really cool. That's a great way to think about it. I wanted to share Cave Day with the audience so that they know you exist, because I think it's a powerful tool that people can use to really make headway in meaningful ways in their own work. And for members of Mastery Group, they're going to get access to Cave Day at a reduced rate, or if we could figure out a way for Velocity Work to cover it, we're going to figure that out because I think it's important. It's a very important piece of the puzzle for all the kind of work and headway we talk about making behind the scenes. If you're a member of Mastery Group or you've been thinking about joining, you should definitely join, because now on top of all of the awesome things in Mastery Group, you will have access to Cave Day in a different way than if you were just on your own and joining. I also want to say that Cave Day is something to plug into or check out regardless. If you're in Mastery Group or not, it just feels like a really great tool to use. So I hope everybody goes to check you guys out. I think there's you guys have a trial that people can take part in.
Yeah, 7-day free trial.
And I was just telling Molly, the only reason I haven't done it yet is because it feels new. And we have been in the middle of intensity because it's the turn of the quarter plus holidays. So this is when all our strategic planning is happening. So it's been just a wild ride in the last month. And for some reason, even though it would do me good, it's new. And so it's just harder for my brain to get on board to like, oh, here's the time to try it. There's never really going to be a perfect time to try it. So over the holiday break, I'm going to sink into it. And I want this to just be a part of how I work because I think it promotes exactly what I care about. And it's so cool to know that you guys exist, that it's a tool that I can use just like everybody else can use to make headway on meaningful things. So I'm pumped to sink into it. I know people who've been in caves and how much they love them. And I've talked to you a few times, and I've also talked to some people that work with you behind the scenes. It's like, this is a no-brainer. I don't know what I'm waiting on. So now over the holidays, I'm going to plug in and
always, we're ready for you anytime.
Okay, well, good.
Even on Christmas Day.
Yeah. So I'm excited to do this as well, along with the members of Mastery Group and Velocity Work. So one more thing I want to ask you about, just logistically, I have a sense, but could you tell people like when the opportunities are? Like, what does that look like? And because we did think about bringing this where maybe you guys could facilitate inside of our group work sessions. But the reason I think we agreed that it's probably not best is because everybody has such different schedules. Right. Where in Cave Day, if you go to Cave Day in your caves, there's a lot more offerings in terms of availability depending on your schedule. So can you say more about how you guys think about that? Because you're global. So you you are around the clock, it seems.
That's right. Well, it's not around the clock. We start at 4:30 a.m. Eastern time, and we go through the day until 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay. And so there are lots of opportunities, and those are, there's 3 hours and 1 hour built into the schedule. And so depending on what you need, those are available to you.
Yeah. There's plenty of time for people in the States to like find a window.
That's right. We have sessions on the weekends as well. And we, oftentimes we'll do little pop-ups in the evening or on the weekends. Mm-hmm. And ideally, eventually we will have more availability in the evenings, but 8 p.m. Eastern is our stop time.
Cool. Well, I'm excited. Get on the train, everybody. And you could do it inside of Velocity Work or you could do it on your own, but get on the train. Well, thank you for coming. I'm excited to have you back a second time. After I've sunk into it, after we have something established for Mastery Group members, it'll be really interesting to talk more about this work and maybe from a different angle, even next time.
Yeah. I can't wait. I'm so glad to chat. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. We tell everybody where to go to learn more.
At caveday.org.
Okay.
Everything is there. caveday.org.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Molly.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye. Hey there. If you enjoyed this podcast, I highly recommend you come and check out Mastery Group. It is where owner attorneys come together to study this material, apply it, and thus create really big results for their firm and for their life. So come on over, velocitywork.com/join to get more information and get started. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.